They say Los Angeles is a city where anything can happen. I've spent my entire life here, yet even now, there are moments when this place still manages to catch me off guard. My mornings have followed the same pattern for as long as I can remember, since before Daniel passed, at least. Every day, without fail, I lace up my sneakers, slip into my favorite leggings and tank top, and set off for Silver Lake Park before the city fully shakes off its slumber. It's my sacred time, a chance to clear my head, let my thoughts settle, and simply be. That morning was no different. I was lost in thought, sifting through old memories, running through mental to-do lists. My feet moved instinctively, each step falling into a steady rhythm, my mind drifting elsewhere. I was so far gone, I almost didn't notice him. Almost. The sensation hit me a fraction of a second before the impact, a flicker of movement in my peripheral vision. Then, before I could react, I collided with something, or someone, solid, sending both of us sprawling onto the gravel path. For a fleeting moment, I couldn't breathe. My thoughts scattered. The world narrowed to the warmth beneath me, the firm, steady presence that had broken my fall. When I looked up, my breath caught. He was young, much younger than me, late 20s perhaps, stunning in that effortless way only those who dedicate their lives to the gym can be. His arms were strong, his jaw sharply defined, and his dark eyes, wide with surprise, locked onto mine. The same shock must have been written all over my own face. Somehow I had ended up draped over him, close enough to feel his warmth, and yet for the life of me I couldn't bring myself to move. My heartbeat pounded against my ribs, the sound of it roaring in my ears. He smelled clean, fresh, a mix of something crisp with just a hint of spice. It had been so long since I'd been this close to a man, so long that in that instant I found myself frozen. I didn't want to move. For a second, just one brief, stolen moment, it felt as if the universe had paused just for us. I'm so sorry, I finally managed, my voice unsteady as the reality of the situation hit me. I was still pressed against him. Heat rushed to my cheeks, and I pushed myself back, my palms tingling from where they had braced against his chest. God, I must have looked ridiculous. He let out a short laugh, shaking his head. No, it's my fault. His voice was deep, rich, carrying an easy warmth that settled around me like a comforting blanket. As he helped me to my feet, he dusted himself off, and that's when I noticed it, the shift of fabric. Somewhere in the fall, my tank top had twisted, exposing more skin than I'd ever intended. The realization hit me at the same moment he noticed, his gaze flickering away with a slightly awkward, almost boyish grin. You might want to," he gestured vaguely, looking everywhere except directly at me. Oh God, my face burned. "Right," I muttered, fumbling to adjust my top, hoping, praying he hadn't seen much. But the sudden, intense interest he was showing in the bushes to our left told me he had. By the time I had properly adjusted my top, I could hardly bring myself to look at him. But when I finally forced my gaze up, I caught something in his expression, a flicker of amusement, sure, but something else, too. Curiosity, perhaps? Whatever it was, it disappeared just as quickly as it had come. "Thanks," I muttered, brushing away the last traces of my embarrassment. "I really am sorry about that. I guess I wasn't paying attention." "Neither was I," he admitted with a slight shrug, his lips curving into a faint smile. His eyes lingered on me, studying me as if trying to figure something out, and for reasons I couldn't quite name, it flustered me, made me feel younger. "Well," I said, forcing my voice into something that at least resembled composure, "I'll get out of your way. I seem to have a talent for attracting trouble." That made him laugh, a real, unrestrained, warm laugh, the kind that made it seem like I just told the best joke in the world. That makes two of us. "Goodbye then," I managed, and before I fully realized it, we had gone our separate ways. But the moment stayed with me. For the rest of my jog, hell, for the rest of the day, I kept replaying it in my head. Maybe it was ridiculous. Maybe it was just one of those fleeting, meaningless encounters that had no real significance, and yet, All afternoon, I couldn't stop thinking about him. The feel of his hands as he pulled me to my feet, the way his voice wrapped around me like something familiar, the lingering scent of cedar and leather that clung to the air around him. Who was he? And why had I let him walk away without even asking his name? For the next week, I found myself retracing the same path through Silver Lake Park, the same winding trail where I'd crashed into him. I told myself it was routine, just part of my usual morning jog. But deep down, I knew better. I was hoping to see him again. Each morning, my eyes scanned the park, sifting through the familiar early risers, the runners, the dog walkers, but he was nowhere to be found. By the time the week ended, I was scolding myself. What had I expected? A man like that had a life, responsibilities. He wasn't lingering around a park, hoping to run into some middle-aged widow who had practically fallen into his arms. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd missed something. Let something slip through my fingers. Daniel had always told me I had a habit of overcomplicating things, of getting caught up in my own thoughts until I twisted them into knots. Maybe he had been right. It had just been a chance meeting, a collision, nothing more. And yet, here I was, lying awake at night thinking about him. By Saturday, I had finally convinced myself to let it go. Standing in line at a cafe, waiting for my usual coffee, I scolded myself for my foolishness. I needed to let it go, move on. And then there he was, across the street, near the entrance to Silver Lake Park, stretching, one leg propped up on a bench as he worked through his warm-ups. Butterflies erupted in my stomach before I even had time to process why. My breath caught, my body frozen in place as if the universe had pressed pause. I didn't even notice the barista trying to hand me my coffee until he cleared his throat. Snapping out of it, I grabbed the cup, mumbled a quick thanks, and hurried outside, my pulse racing with something that felt an awful lot like hope. He was still there. And just like that, the nervous thrill returned, fluttering inside me, stirring something I hadn't felt in a long time. A part of me considered turning around, sparing myself the potential embarrassment. Walking away would be easier, safer. But before my overthinking could trap me, I squared my shoulders, took a deep breath, and made my way toward him. "Hey!" I called out, my voice coming out just a little too bright. He turned, straightening as his eyes met mine. Surprise flickered across his face before recognition set in. That same easy, warm smile curved his lips. "Oh, hey," he said, fancy seeing you here?" I let out a breathy laugh, feeling the warmth spread across my cheeks. Guess I'm predictable. And just like that, something shifted in the air. I tried to sound casual, to keep the moment light, but my pulse betrayed me. Thrumming too fast, too eager. I just wanted to apologize again," I said, shifting slightly on my feet. "I think I nearly knocked you unconscious last week." His laughter came easily, crinkling the corners of his dark eyes. "Don't worry about it. I've taken worse tumbles." He tilted his head slightly, a small grin tugging at his lips. Besides, it made for a pretty good story. I exhaled a quiet laugh, my nerves easing just a bit. "A good one, I hope." "Oh yeah," he said, his eyes twinkling with something unreadable. "Though my friends probably think I made the whole thing up. Gorgeous woman plows me over in Silver Lake Park. Sounds like a terrible rom-com plot, doesn't it?" Heat rushed to my cheeks. I wasn't sure whether to feel flattered or completely mortified. "Well," I said, forcing my voice into something breezy, "glad to be of service, I suppose." His grin widened. I hesitated for half a second before blurting out, don't even know your name. I mean, if I'm going to be a character in one of your stories..." "Ethan," he supplied easily. "And you?" "Margaret." He repeated it slowly, almost like he was testing the weight of it on his tongue. Something about the way he said my name made my stomach dip, as if he were rolling it around in his mind, tasting it. "Nice to meet you, Margaret." We lingered there, neither of us quite ready to move, just smiling at each other. The world around us continued on, cars humming in the background, people passing by, conversations floating in the air, but for a brief moment, it felt like just us, just here. A strange, unfamiliar urge curled inside me to keep talking, to learn more, to stretch this moment just a little longer. But then reality snapped back into place, the rational part of me reminding me that I was a middle-aged woman who had just interrupted a younger man's morning routine. I didn't want to overstep. "Well," I said, trying to sound light, unaffected, "I won't keep you from your run. Thanks for not holding my clumsiness against me." He shrugged, his smile easy and warm. "No problem at all." "And hey, maybe I'll see you around?" "Maybe," I replied, forcing myself to walk away even as my heart did that ridiculous fluttering thing. I could still feel his gaze on me as I went. I made it home in a daze, peeling off my running clothes and slipping into something more comfortable. Cooking had always been my way of grounding myself, keeping my hands busy, letting my mind settle. But that night, even the rhythmic sizzle of vegetables in a hot pan wasn't enough to pull my thoughts away from him. Ethan, the way his voice had wrapped around my name, the easy way he had laughed, the warmth in his eyes. I tried to shake it off, tried to focus on the simple mechanics of chopping, stirring, seasoning, but no matter how hard I tried, his face stayed with me. Ethan, the way he laughed, the warmth laced in his voice, the subtle, almost imperceptible spark in his gaze. At first my thoughts were harmless, just replaying the conversation, the ease of it, the way he'd smiled. But as the evening stretched on, my mind drifted further, indulging in curiosity. What would it feel like if his hand reached across the table, barely grazing mine, before lingering? Would his voice drop just a little lower when he laughed, his gaze softening as he leaned in? I plated my dinner, but I hardly noticed what I was eating. The memory of his frame, broad shoulders, strong arms, the way his fitted shirt hugged his torso as he stretched in Silver Lake Park, lingered in my thoughts longer than it should have. I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes for a moment, my fingertips absently tracing slow patterns along the table's edge. I couldn't stop it. The longer I let my mind wander, the harder it became to push away the restless hum settling deep in my chest. My breath hitched ever so slightly, my pulse kicking up a notch, and before I knew it, sleep pulled me under with a single thought looping through my mind. I had to see him again. The next morning, I was back at Silver Lake Park, practically buzzing with anticipation. It was ridiculous, and I knew it. This wasn't some romance novel, and yet there I was, scanning the park, my heart stuttering every time I thought I spotted a familiar figure. And then, there, by the same bench where I had first collided into him, Ethan stood stretching in the morning light, his arms flexing with a casual, effortless grace that made my breath catch. I smoothed my hands down my tank top, inhaled a steady breath, and forced myself to approach him, mentally rehearsing something casual, lighthearted, playful. I stopped beside him, tilting my head with a smirk. Well, I mused, my voice a little too smooth. "Look what we have here." He glanced up, momentarily startled, but then that easy grin returned. "Oh, hey, morning." "Gotta say," I murmured, letting my gaze linger just a little longer than necessary. "You're dedicated." His eyebrows lifted slightly. Thanks. I come here most mornings. Helps loosen me up, release some tension, you know." I took a step closer, just a fraction, lowering my voice ever so slightly. "I could use a good release too," I murmured, the words carrying an edge of something I probably shouldn't have let slip. His laughter came fast, nervous. He ran a hand through his hair, shifting uncomfortably. It's just running, really. Nothing too exciting. I arched a brow. Bet you've got great stamina. His face flushed, and for the first time since we met, he looked flustered. I guess it's all about endurance. I mused, letting my gaze drop briefly before meeting his again. I like that. I could use a good workout myself. The silence between us stretched just a second too long. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, shifting his weight. He looked uneasy. Yeah, running is great for that. I should have stopped there, should have picked up on the subtle change in his posture, the way his glances kept darting around, like he was looking for an exit. But something in me pressed forward anyway, unwilling to let the moment slip. So, I said, my voice dipping, do you prefer multiple laps or just one intense sprint to the finish line? His short laugh was nervous, uneasy. And then I saw it. The way his body stiffened, how his easygoing smile had turned forced. I had gone too far. Taking a step back, I cleared my throat, forcing out a small, self-conscious laugh. I'm just teasing, I said quickly, trying to reel it back. Didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. His response came too fast, too rehearsed. No, it's fine really, just, early, you know? His eyes flicked away, his smile no longer quite reaching them. I could see it, the exact moment he decided he needed an exit. Lifting a hand, I waved him off, offering him an out. Yeah, of course, see you around. And just like that, he jogged off. I stood there, watching his retreating figure until he disappeared around the bend. The embarrassment crept in slowly at first, like a small whisper in the back of my mind, but then it crashed over me in full force, swallowing me whole. God, what was I thinking? He was so much younger, and there I was, practically throwing myself at him with all the grace and subtlety of a sledgehammer. The entire way home I berated myself, replaying every awkward moment, every too bold word, cringing at the memory of my own foolishness. By the time I reached my apartment, I was drained, exhausted from the relentless cycle of overanalyzing every look, every response, every second of that humiliating exchange. And yet, the next morning I still found myself back at Silver Lake Park, searching for him, hoping. The park felt different that morning. The usual hum of the city waking up, the rustle of leaves, the rhythmic pounding of runners' feet against the pavement, none of it eased the gnawing pit in my stomach. I told myself I was just here for my jog, just following my usual routine, but that wasn't the truth, was it? I was looking for him. Each time I rounded a bend, my eyes scanned the familiar stretch of trees, the winding paths, the scattered clusters of early risers, joggers, dog walkers. But Ethan was nowhere to be seen. I told myself it was for the best. I had come on too strong, pushed too hard. And yet, just as I was beginning to feel foolish, just as I was ready to let go of this ridiculous fixation, I spotted him. Not where I expected, across the street, walking toward a different path, his usual spot abandoned. A flicker of something twisted in my chest. Before I had time to think, I was moving, crossing the road, weaving between slow-moving early morning traffic with a newfound urgency I barely understood. My pulse wasn't racing from exertion. It was something else entirely. By the time I reached him, I was breathless. "Hey, Ethan," I called, trying to steady my voice. He turned at the sound of his name, his brows lifting in surprise. It took a second, but then recognition set in. "Oh, hi." He hesitated. "Margaret, right?" I ignored the way my stomach flipped at hearing him say my name. Yes, I let out a small, self-conscious laugh, brushing a stray strand of hair from my face. "Sorry for, chasing you down like that." His lips curved into something polite, but there was a careful distance now. Guarded, No worries. I felt the heat creeping up my cheeks, but I pushed forward anyway. I just wanted to say hi, see how you're doing. For a moment he hesitated, as if debating something internally. Then finally he offered a small smile. I'm good, just out for my usual run. His eyes flicked to the path ahead, as if uncertain what else to say. And that was when I knew. He was being careful with me. He wasn't rude, wasn't brushing me off outright, but there was a distance now, a shift. I swallowed down the sudden lump forming in my throat. Listen, I said, forcing my voice to stay light, casual. If you're free, maybe we could grab a coffee? I know it's a bit forward, but for a moment I thought he'd say no, that he'd make an excuse, give me a polite out, but then after a short pause he gave a small nod. Yeah, sure. Coffee sounds nice. The walk to the cafe was short, but with every step the air between us felt heavier. I told myself to relax, to stop overthinking, and yet, as we settled across from each other at a small table, coffee cups between us, I felt something inside me crack open. His expression was kind, polite even, but not quite the same as before. I exhaled slowly, tapping my fingers against the warm ceramic of my cup. So this might be a bit much, I admitted, my voice softer than I intended. But I just need to be up front. He tilted his head slightly, listening. I've been alone for a long time, I said, my fingers tightening around my cup. Since my husband passed. I paused, watching for his reaction. He didn't look away, didn't shift in discomfort. If anything, he seemed to lean in just slightly, his gaze steady, waiting. That gave me the courage to keep going. I know how this must look. I don't want you to think I'm desperate, or that I don't see how ridiculous this all seems. But sometimes, I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes loneliness makes you see sparks in places they probably don't exist. He was quiet for a moment. Then finally he nodded. His expression softened and he murmured, Margaret, I get it. And before I could say another word, before I could brace myself for whatever he might say next, he reached across the table, just briefly, and placed the lightest kiss against my cheek. It wasn't romantic, not really. It was gentle, understanding. And in that moment, something inside me stirred to life, or at least I thought it did. The warmth of his breath lingered against my skin, a fleeting touch that sent a ripple through me. And before I could second-guess myself, before I could think of all the reasons why this was a mistake, the words slipped out. Why don't we go to my place? Just for a bit. My voice barely above a whisper. I expected hesitation, a pause, maybe even an awkward, polite decline. But after a brief moment, Ethan nodded. We finished our coffee in silence, and then without a word, he walked me home. Inside my apartment, the air shifted. A quiet anticipation, a charged uncertainty. I wasn't sure what I was doing, only that I didn't want this moment to slip away just yet. Would you like something to drink? I asked, stepping a little closer. He shook his head. He was watching me now, his expression unreadable, but he didn't step back. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not as someone's widow, not as a woman past her prime, but simply as me. Before I could talk myself out of it, before logic could ruin this fragile moment, I closed the space between us. My fingers brushed his arms, feeling the solid warmth beneath his skin, and then he leaned in. The kiss was soft at first, uncertain, tentative. But then something between us broke loose. The world blurred and faded, reduced to nothing but the press of his lips, the way his hands found my waist, the way my own fingers traced along the curve of his jaw. There was no past in that moment, no regrets, no second-guessing, only him, only this, the quiet surrender of years spent yearning for something I hadn't even realized I missed. and for a little while it was enough. Afterward, we lay there in the stillness, breathless, the silence between us heavier than before. I reached for him, my fingers grazing his arm, a small smile curving my lips. But then he shifted, sat up. The change was immediate. Something inside him had closed off, as if he had suddenly remembered something. He turned toward me, his expression unreadable, but I already knew. "Margaret," he began, his voice careful, "listen, this was nice." The moment he said it like that, my stomach twisted. He hesitated before running a hand through his hair, avoiding my gaze. "But I want to be honest with you." A pause. "I only did this because—" He exhaled, shaking his head slightly. "I don't know. I guess I just felt bad for you. I didn't want to let you down." Ice water. That's what it felt like a sharp cold wave crashing over me. Felt bad for me. Didn't want to let me down. The words hit like a gut punch, knocking the breath from my lungs. "What?" The word barely escaped my lips. He sighed. "I don't want to lead you on. I think it's better if we don't see each other again." And just like that, whatever fragile connection I thought we had, whatever fleeting thing had existed between us, shattered. I nodded weakly, swallowing against the tightness in my throat. I understand." He gave me a soft, almost pitying smile. Then, without another word, he stood, adjusting his clothes. And then he was gone. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving only silence. I sat there, staring at the empty space where he had been, the weight of it settling over me. I had let myself hope for too much, and I had been reminded, yet again, of just how far away the world truly was. With a heavy heart, I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, letting the quiet wrap itself around me once more.